So, last topic for our soiree into finding out how mood affects cognition. This time we'll speak more specifically about attention. And this is about perceptual focus. So, the idea here is that mood can influence how we perceive the world in terms of whether we look at things more globally or if we think at the detailed local focus point. So you might say sometimes you don't see the forest because you only focus on the trees. That's exactly what perceptual focus is about. So a more global focus would be looking at the forest as a forest, and the local focus version of looking at the same thing might be focusing on the individual trees. So instead of saying this is a forest, you would say there are many trees. So in line with the idea that we can use mood as information, we would suggest that positive mood gives us a signal that everything's okay. We can use a default strategy. We can rely on our heuristics and on our stereotypes. So we would be in a more global focus. Whereas being in a negative mood means, oh, something is wrong. I can't go for the default strategy. I need to focus on the details, and that's why I would go for the local focus. Now, how can we measure whether participants are in a global or in a local processing focus? Participants, here's a study from Gasper and Clore in 2002, and participants were again first induced to experience positive or neutral mood by autobiographical recall, and we would expect that participants would have higher, more global perceptual focus in the positive mood condition. And what does perceptual focus mean specifically for the study? They use materials such as the one that's displayed on the slide, where you can see we have a reference shape. This is a triangle made out of triangles. And participants were asked which of the two comparison shapes, either the square made out of triangles or the triangle made out of squares, they thought was more similar to the reference object. So if you say that the triangle made of squares is more similar to it, you would be in a more global focus. But if you said the triangles making up a square were more similar to the reference object, then you would be in the more local focus, right? Because you focus on the individual on the triangles making up the reference triangle, while the squares making up the global triangle would speak for global focus. And what is the result that we see? It is that, as we expected, participants in the positive mood make more global matches. So they would be more likely to pick the triangle made out of squares to match to the reference object here. Overall, for perceptual scope, this means that mood broadens the perceptual scope, while negative mood narrows the perceptual scope. And positive mood is therefore also associated with enhanced creativity, actually. So in the task where you're supposed to produce more uses for a brick, as many uses for a brick as you can come up with, people who are in a positive mood, they have just more creative ideas, and you might link that to the fact that they have a more global processing scope, perceptual scope, and then that means that that's because more alternatives come to mind.